I'm George Hawke, and I served as president 1969-1970. I was in the armed services in the Army Air Corps in 1944 when I was told to come to Arizona to visit. And I did come to Arizona to visit, and I was invited to Rotary by Dan Brewster. Dan Brewster was my uncle, and he was the fellow that built the old El Conquistador Hotel. He was a contractor on that, and he was a member of the Rotary Club of Tucson, so he invited me to be his guest.
Tell us about your first time exposure to Rotary.
Well, my exposure was when Stub Ashcraft, who sponsored me, had me as his guest also down at the Rotary Club. And of course, I was very much impressed. And he sponsored me, and I think he's only sponsored 2 people in this club. One is I, and the other is his barber.
All right.
And so I have a special affection for Stub, as everybody does. And when I came into the Rotary Club as a guest, there were a number of people there that came over to me to shake my hand. They usually just say, "Hi, George." But in this case, these people actually came to my table, and they're very prominent people. For example, Pop McHale, University of Arizona Athletic Director. Alfred Atkinson, who was president of the University of Arizona. Henry Dalton, city councilman. Alex Hockamy, who was president of Hockamy's department store. Bob Heineman, Oscar Davis, and others. It was amazing, albeit humbling, that to have these well-known men recognize and welcome a hometown boy back home from service. Because the usual greeting was, "Hi, George."
Yes.
I don't feel it was I as a person who was appreciatively recognized so much as the fact that the United States was at war and they were expressing their admiration for a member of their community who was serving in the armed services. This impressed me so much, they're coming over to see me, that I vowed that someday I'd be a member of this club. So, 13 years later, Stub Ashcraft sponsored me in the club.
What took Stubb so long to ask you?
Well, they weren't actively getting members in those days. It isn't like today when we're actively trying to get members. In those days, it wasn't quite as important.
Is there anything else about this first meeting that you particularly remember?
Anything about it?
The first meeting? Was it what the program was? Do you remember what the program was?
I don't remember what the program was, but it was very, very important because I became the president, and then I received the Orville McPherson Award, which is in recognition of a member of the club who has consistently gone above and beyond, giving 100% to make Tucson Rotary a very special club for all of us. At this writing, there are 23 members in that.
Do you remember back to your initiation as president? Could you tell us that story about your initiation and how you became president of our club?
I'll tell you about the installation as Rotary Club president. I was installed as president of the Rotary Club in July of 1969. The inauguration of presidents of this club are not solemn occasions, but times for fun and of roasting the new leader unmercifully. This was the age of the hippie movement in our country. Our generation was, quote, square. And I was one of the most Simon Pure of the conformists. I have a picture here of the club at that time showing all the members who are in ties and coats. We wore ties and coats in those days. So you can see that everybody's wearing a tie and a coat. But they decided they were going to make a hippie out of me because I was square. They seated me in a high stool like this in front of the audience, 250 to 275 strong. I was dressed in my usual conservative attire, coat and tie. Swede Johnson, Vice President of the University of Arizona, and Billy Joe Varney, Associate Vice President of the U of A, entered in hippie garb, including long hair wigs. With them were 3 gorgeous models in bikinis. The 3 models then, with constant palaver from Swede and Billy Joe, took steps to completely undress me. Bill Smith, who was chairman of the installation committee, had me wear under my clothing what was decent. From our Whitaker Pool store, I had selected an old-fashioned striped bathing suit with lifeguard emblazoned on the front. So when the models were performing their duties, accompanied by the cheers and hoots of the audience, everyone was surprised to find me prepared for the undraping, although I didn't know beforehand exactly what was to occur. The front page of the Tusater for that day depicted me as a hippie, as you can see. The other Tucson was for the program 2 weeks later.
All right. Those are great memories, George. You have a very deserved reputation in our club as the most prolific gatherer of new members in our history. In your 39 years since you were president, in your 44 years, how long were you, when did you join our club?
57. 57?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that means that's 43 plus 9, that's 52 years. So you've been in our club for 52 years, you've sponsored 53 new Rotarians. What has motivated you to recruit that many Rotarians? Why have you done this?
You know why? I love Rotary so much that I wanted to make it available to everybody I could find, because I knew that they would enjoy Rotary too. And that's true. They all have enjoyed Rotary very much. Not all of them have stayed in. Many have died, as a matter of fact. But many have moved to California or to the Phoenix area or out of town. But I still have probably 15 or 16 Rotarians left in the club.
How do you sell Rotary to somebody? What do you say? When you meet somebody that you think will be a good Rotarian, what do you do to get them into our club?
The first thing to do is to try and get them to attend a meeting or two. That's what you want to do. Because then, if they attend the meeting, they know what you're talking about. If you talk about it and try to explain it, you can't do it until they come to the club and see it for themselves. So that's the main thing you want to do, is to bring them in, bring them as a guest. The most important thing is to get Rotarians involved in their programs. Get them on committees. That's the main thing. If you get them involved on committees, then they will become more interested, and they'll be more willing to serve and more willing to stay. I think we forget that if they're not involved, they're not interested. So get them involved and they will be interested and will want to stay.
I think that's the secret to success. So first you recruit them. You're saying you recruit them based on the quality of our meetings, so they can see who's involved and who are members. But then to keep them involved, to keep them as members, you have to get them involved. That's right. Is that right?
Yeah.
Words of wisdom, George. I think you've added a tremendous lot to our club, and I appreciate it, because if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be here. And I'm glad I'm here.
Well, I'm glad you are too, Bob.
Yeah.